My name is Olivia Mercer, and the story I am about to tell you is the most painful, disorienting, yet liberating chapter of my life. If you have ever been treated like you owed your family everything, your time, your money, your future, then what you are about to hear may hit closer than you expect. Before we begin, if any moment in this story reminds you of something you have lived through, leave a comment. I read every single one. And if stories of justice, healing, and standing up for yourself resonate with you, consider subscribing. It helps more than you know. Now, let me take you back to the beginning. Growing up, I was the daughter who was expected to hold everything together. Not because I was the oldest, not because I was the most capable, but simply because my parents decided that was my role. My sister, Madison, 3 years younger than me, was always described as the delicate one, the dreamer, the child with potential. Those words sound beautiful until you realize they were code for Olivia will clean up the mess. Olivia will sacrifice. Olivia will manage. I learned early how to fold myself small to make space for her. Missed events? Fine. They needed me to babysit Madison. Extra chores? Sure. Madison had too much on her plate. College savings? Spent on a summer program. Madison quit after 2 weeks. Every time I protested, my mother would look at me with that tired, scolding expression and say, "You are the strong one, Olivia. Families rely on their strong ones. But strength is not infinite, especially when it is taken for granted." By the time I reached my mid-20s, I had moved out, worked 2 jobs, and fought for every inch of financial stability I had. And slowly, quietly, I started building a dream they never imagined I could reach. I wanted my own house. Not an extravagant one, not a mansion, just a place that was mine. A place where no one slammed doors during arguments, where no one threw guilt like weapons, where no one treated me as the household insurance policy. I still remember the moment the realtor handed me the keys. The metal felt warm in my hand, as if it had been waiting for me. A 2-story home with faded blue shutters, a yard that needed love, and a porch that creaked when you stepped on it. To anyone else, it was just a starter house. To me, it was sanctuary. I took pictures. I sent them to my closest friends. And then, against my better judgment, I sent one to my parents. I should have known that would start the fire. My mom called first. Her voice wasn't congratulatory. It wasn't proud. It was sharp, tight, like she had been insulted. "Olivia, you bought a house?" I laughed, nervous. "Yeah. I closed today. I wanted you to. And you didn't discuss this with us?" Discuss? With them? With the people who had never supported any major decision I made in my life? I swallowed. "Mom, I paid for it. I've been saving for years." There was a pause. Not the proud kind. The calculating kind. "So you used the family fund?" I froze. "What family fund?" "The money we always set aside. The money meant for both of you girls." I almost laughed at the absurdity. "Mom, that fund never existed for me. The last of it was spent on Madison's art school tuition, remember?" And then there was silence. A guilty kind, heavy and thick. But instead of admitting fault, she exhaled sharply and said, "Well, regardless. You know Madison needs a house. She's been struggling. She has dreams she wants to pursue. That house should go to her." My heart dropped. "I'm sorry, what?" "You heard me, Olivia. You are strong. You will manage. Your sister needs that house more than you do." That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not a clean break, no. A deep fracture. One that had been forming for years. I ended the call with shaking hands. The next day, my father called. His tone wasn't angry. It was worse, condescending. "Liv, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Your mother and I talked. The right thing to do is transfer the house to Madison." I could barely breathe. "Dad, I paid for it. Every cent. That house represents years of work. And we are telling you what the family needs." Family. That word again. Used not as love, but as leverage. That night, for the first time in my life, I cried not because of disappointment, but because of clarity. They had never seen me as a daughter. I was an asset. a utility, a convenient source of sacrifice. And now they wanted to take the one thing I had ever built entirely on my own. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. A legal letter. From a law firm. My hands trembled as I opened it. They were suing me. My own parents were taking me to court claiming I had used family funds to purchase the home, that the property rightfully belonged to Madison, and that I had committed fraud. For a moment, the world stopped spinning. I felt my body go numb, my mind hollow, my pulse echoing in my ears. Fraud? This was not a misunderstanding, not a disagreement, not a heated argument. This was war. A war I never asked for. A war I never deserved. I called my mom, voice shaking. How could you do this to me? How could you take me to court? Her voice was cold. Because you left us no choice, Olivia. Your sister needs stability. And you took that away from her when you bought that house. We are correcting your mistake. My mistake, buying my own house, with my own money, was a mistake? Somewhere between heartbreak and disbelief, anger finally began to bloom, anger I had buried for decades. I will not let you take what I earned, I whispered. My mother scoffed. We raised you. You owe us. No. I owed them nothing. Love is not debt. Family is not ownership. And children are not property. That night, as I sat at my kitchen table, my house, my safe place surrounded by unopened boxes and the faint smell of fresh paint, I made a promise. If they wanted a fight, I would give them one. Not out of spite, not out of revenge, but because for the first time in my life, I realized I was allowed to choose myself. I hired a lawyer the next morning, a woman named Alyssa Grant, sharp as steel and twice as cold in a courtroom. When I explained everything, every detail, every unfair expectation, every guilt trip, she looked at me with a mixture of confusion and pity. Olivia, you know you are completely in the right, don't you? I wasn't sure. Years of emotional conditioning had blurred the line between right and wrong. She continued, you have bank statements, employment records, transaction histories. They don't have a case. They only have audacity. Audacity. The perfect word for my parents. For the first time in weeks, maybe years, I felt something warm flicker in my chest. Hope. A small spark, but enough to light the path forward. When the court date finally arrived, the sky was a dull, unforgiving gray. A fitting backdrop for the moment I would stand across from the two people who had sworn they loved me, yet dragged me into a legal battle as if I were nothing more than an enemy. I stood in front of the courthouse steps, clutching the strap of my bag so tightly my knuckles whitened. My heart was beating too fast, too loud, like it knew something in my life was about to snap forever. My lawyer, Alyssa Grant, placed a firm hand on my shoulder. Remember, Olivia, she said softly. Facts don't lie. People do. I nodded, though my stomach churned with nausea. Inside the courtroom, the air felt stale. Rows of benches lined the walls, and at the far end, the judge's seat loomed like a throne carved from stone. And there, sitting on the opposite side, were my parents and Madison. My mother's lips were pressed into a thin line of disappointment. My father looked annoyed, as if the mere fact that I dared to defend myself was an inconvenience. Madison, she wouldn't even look at me. Her eyes were fixed on her lap, like she was the real victim here. A part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted to cry. But the strongest part, the one I had buried to survive, wanted to win. The judge entered, firm and emotionless. Everyone rose. When the proceedings began, my parents' attorney, an older man with silver hair and an oily smile, stood up first. Your Honor, he said, this case is about a daughter who misused family assets for her own personal gain, depriving her younger sister of a home that rightfully belongs to her. The Mercers have always maintained a shared family fund for the benefit of both daughters. Olivia Mercer knowingly abused this fund. Every sentence felt like a slap. A shared fund? A rightful home? Abused? It was surreal hearing lies spoken so confidently, so publicly. Alyssa leaned toward me and whispered, let them talk. Their story won't hold. Then it was her turn. She stood gracefully, her voice steady, commanding. Your Honor, the defendant Miss Mercer purchased her home entirely with her own income. We have bank statements, pay stubs, wire transfers, and closing documents to prove it. At no point were any shared funds used. In fact, evidence will show that any so-called family fund was depleted years ago, exclusively on the younger sister, Madison. Madison's head shot up. My mother frowned. My father shifted uncomfortably. Alyssa continued. This case is not about fraud. This case is about entitlement. It is about a family attempting to seize property that does not belong to them, simply because they believe Miss Mercer is too responsible and too compliant to fight back. I felt heat rise behind my eyes.
Someone saw me.
Someone finally said it out loud. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't ungrateful. I wasn't the villain. I was a daughter who had been used.
It was time for me to testify.
My legs felt like rubber as I approached the witness stand. I took the oath and sat, palms sweating against the wood railing. Alyssa smiled encouragingly. Miss Mercer, she began gently, can you explain to the court how you saved for your home? I nodded, swallowing hard. I worked, I said.
For years.
I took on extra shifts, managed 2 jobs at one point. I lived in a small apartment with 3 roommates. Everything I earned, I saved. Every dollar mattered. Alyssa held up a binder. And these financial records, these are yours? Yes. No other contributors?
No.
She nodded. And at any point, did your parents give you money toward a house? I let out a shaky breath.
No.
They never offered. They actually discouraged me from buying. A murmur rippled across the courtroom. Alyssa stepped back. Thank you, Olivia. Then came the part one dreaded. My parents' attorney rose with a smug grin. Miss Mercer, isn't it true that your sister is currently unemployed? Yes, I said cautiously. And isn't it true she has been facing mental and emotional difficulties? My mother gasped softly, as if the question wounded her. I frowned. She's had challenges, yes, but... So, you agree she is in a more vulnerable position than you? I suppose in some ways. And knowing that, you still chose to purchase a home for yourself instead of helping your family? The trap snapped shut. My pulse surged. I chose to build a life for myself, I said firmly. That isn't cruelty. It's survival. The attorney pounced. But maybe it's selfishness. Maybe you deliberately abandoned your family obligations. Obligations. The word tore from my throat. Like giving up my savings? My future? My home? Please answer the question, he snapped. I glared at him. I did not abandon anything. I have never taken from my family. Only given. For the first time, my mother looked away. When Madison was called to the stand, my heart panged with an ache I couldn't fully explain. She walked slowly, her hair falling in soft waves, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her skirt. She looked younger than 23, smaller, somehow weaker. Madison, the attorney said, can you tell the court how this situation has affected you? Her voice trembled. I feel lost, she whispered. I was supposed to move into that house. Mom and Dad told me it was being planned for years. They told me Olivia knew.
A lie.
A pure, devastating lie. The attorney nodded sympathetically. So, you believed that house was meant for you? Yes, she said, wiping tears. My parents always said Olivia was the strong one, the one who could handle living anywhere. They told me she was buying the house for me. I didn't know she didn't agree. My breath stopped. They lied to her too? It felt like my ribs were collapsing inward. But the worst came next. Alyssa stood, calm and collected. Madison, she said softly, did your parents ever tell you Olivia used her own money? Her own savings? Madison looked startled. No, they told me it was all from the family fund. Did they ever show you evidence of this fund? She hesitated.
No.
Alyssa held up another binder. These are the Mercer family's financial records. There is no existing fund. Can you confirm this looks accurate? Madison's eyes widened as she scanned the pages. Her lips began to tremble. I didn't know. Alyssa stepped closer. Madison, did Olivia ever promise you the house? No, she whispered. Did she ever even discuss purchasing a home for you?
No.
And do you still believe she stole something from you? Madison shook her head, tears flowing freely now.
No.
I think Mom and Dad lied to me. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. My mother's face went gray. My father stiffened like stone.
And
I felt like I had been punched in the chest. Next, Alyssa presented the final blow. A USB drive containing audio recordings. Recordings of conversations my parents had with relatives bragging that they would secure the house for Madison, laughing that I never fight back, and even discussing how they would pressure Olivia until she caves. The judge's jaw tightened. The attorney's face strained. My mother whispered, How did she? Alyssa glanced at me with a tiny smirk. Your Honor, she said, this is not a case of fraud. This is a case of manipulation, coercion, and greed. My chest tightened with a mixture of pain and triumph. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining the abuse. I wasn't overreacting. The truth was finally visible, ugly, undeniable, blinding. The judge struck her gavel lightly. We will reconvene tomorrow for closing statements. I exhaled shakily, my lungs burning. The courtroom began to empty. My parents rose first. My mother refused to look at me. My father's face was twisted in silent fury. But Madison approached me slowly, hesitating before speaking. Liv, I'm so sorry, she whispered. I didn't know they lied. I thought you were doing this to hurt me. A tear slid down my cheek. I would never hurt you, I whispered back. I just wanted a life of my own. She nodded, sobbing softly. I believe you now. It was the first honest moment we had shared in years. When we stepped outside, Alyssa turned to me. Tomorrow decides everything. I nodded, but deep inside, I already felt something shift. Win or lose, I wasn't the same Olivia anymore. I had finally learned how to fight for myself. The next morning, the courthouse felt different. Yesterday, the air had been heavy with fear. Today, it hummed with something sharper, something electric. Truth. Truth has a weight to it. A pressure. And once it begins to surface, it pushes everything else aside: illusion, manipulation, denial. I stepped through the courthouse doors with steadier legs than I expected. My heart still quivered, but there was a new strength beneath it, like a foundation finally setting after years of trembling. Alyssa walked beside me, crisp and composed, her heels clicking in purposeful rhythm. You held strong yesterday, she said. Today we finish this. I nodded, drawing in a breath so deep it almost hurt. Inside the courtroom, my parents sat rigid and stone-faced. My mother's eyes looked hollow, rimmed with sleepless anger. My father clenched his jaw so tightly the muscle twitched. Madison sat between them, but her expression was different now: sad, conflicted, almost protective of me. The judge entered. Everyone rose. And then it began. Alyssa stood first for closing statements. Her voice was steady, but there was a subtle fire woven through the calm, like a blade glinting beneath silk. Your Honor, this case is not about money. It is not about a house. It is about power. She walked toward the center of the courtroom, pausing just long enough for every word to land. For years, Miss Mercer was the responsible child, the reliable one, the one her family depended on. But that responsibility was twisted into obligation and then into ownership. My mother flinched. Her parents believed they had a right to her labor, her money, her future, and ultimately, her home. They lied to both daughters, weaponized guilt, and attempted to seize property that did not, and has never, belonged to them. Alyssa lifted a binder of financial documents. The evidence is clear. Miss Mercer paid for the home herself, with years of work and sacrifice. No family fund exists. No promises were made. The plaintiffs brought this case not out of justice, but entitlement. Then she lowered her voice, soft, but powerful. Olivia Mercer is not her parents' possession. She is a human being, and she deserves the right to keep what she built. She returned to her seat. My chest tightened with emotion. Then my parents' attorney rose, more frazzled now, his rehearsed confidence shaken. He tried to salvage their narrative. Your Honor, the Mercers acted only out of concern. Their younger daughter is vulnerable. They believed the home was meant for her. They believed Olivia understood this. But even he sounded unconvinced. He stuttered, lost his place, and finally said, regardless, the family acted in good faith. Good faith. The words hung in the air like a joke delivered at a funeral. The judge didn't react. She simply nodded and motioned for everyone to sit. Her face was unreadable as she shuffled papers, reviewing everything once more. I held my breath. Everyone did. Even the air seemed to freeze. Finally, the judge set down her pen, folded her hands, and looked up. After reviewing the evidence, the testimonies, and the financial records, my pulse hammered. The court finds that Miss Olivia Mercer is the sole legal owner of the property in question. The plaintiff's claims of shared family funds are unsupported and contradicted by the evidence. My mother's fingers curled into fists. Furthermore, the court concludes that this lawsuit was filed under false pretenses and constitutes an abuse of the legal system. A small gasp rippled through the benches behind us. The judge's voice hardened. The plaintiffs, Mr. and Mrs. Mercer, are ordered to cover all legal fees incurred by the defendant. My mother choked on an inhale. My father shot to his feet. Your Honor, this is ridiculous. Sit down, Mr. Mercer, the judge snapped. This court will not entertain manipulation disguised as parental concern. He sat, slowly, defeated, humiliated. The gavel struck. Court adjourned. And just like that, I could breathe again. My chest expanded with a freedom I had never known. Warmth flooded my limbs. Relief washed over me so intensely it almost felt like sadness. Because something inside me had been released. Something I didn't realize I'd been carrying for years. Alyssa placed a hand on my back. You won, Olivia.
No.
I thought quietly. I didn't just win the case. I won myself back. As people filed out, my mother stormed toward me, her face twisted with fury. How could you do this to us? She hissed. A bitter laugh escaped me, small, exhausted, but real. To you? I said softly. Mom, you dragged me to court. You tried to take my home. You lied to your own daughters. That house belonged to Madison. No, I whispered. It never did. You just wanted it to. My father stepped closer, towering over me like he had when I was a child. You are ungrateful, he spat. Everything we've done for you, everything you did, I cut in, came with chains attached. His face reddened. You'll regret this, Olivia. For the first time in my life, I met his glare without fear. No, I said. I won't. Madison stood behind them, crying silently. Liv, I'm sorry, she whispered again. I didn't know they'd go this far. I touched her arm gently. It isn't your fault, I said. But you need to see them as they are, not as you hope they'll be. She nodded, broken-hearted but finally awake. My parents left without another word. Madison lingered, looking torn. She hugged me, hesitant, then tighter. Thank you, she whispered, for not turning me into the enemy. I hugged her back. You never were. She left with one last look, a look that told me she wouldn't blindly follow them anymore. And just like that, the courtroom emptied. The echoes faded. And I stood alone. But for the first time, alone felt strong. Alone felt safe. Alone felt mine. Weeks later, I stood on the porch of my house, and watched the afternoon light stretch across the yard. It didn't look like just a building anymore. It looked like healing. It looked like autonomy. It looked like the first breath of a life I hadn't believed I was allowed to live. Inside, the rooms were filled with furniture I chose. Walls painted in colors that made me feel calm. Plants that finally had sunlight. Every corner whispered something I had never heard growing up. You belong here. I learned something while fighting that case. Family is not defined by blood. Family is defined by love, respect, and boundaries. If someone cannot honor those things, they do not get access to your heart or your home. My parents lost the right to both. That realization hurt, but it also healed. Because choosing myself wasn't selfish. It was necessary. If you're listening to this, and you've ever been made to feel like your worth is measured by what you can sacrifice, I want you to know this. You don't owe your pain to anyone. You don't owe your labor, your dreams, or your future to anyone. Not even those who raised you. Especially if they raised you to shrink. You have the right to choose yourself. And when you finally do, the world becomes bigger, gentler, brighter.
Just like mine did.
Thank you for listening to my story. If any part of this resonated with you, leave a comment. I read every single one, and your stories matter. And if you want more storytelling like this, more justice, more healing, more cinematic, true-life narratives, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. This is Olivia Mercer, and this was the story of the house they tried to steal, and the life I reclaimed instead.